What's going on, y'all, man? I had to talk about the big schedule released today, officially for Georgia Tech. It's at 6:45, man. So we got to react to all these games. Home and away. Home is the gold-looking colors. Away is the white. So without further ado, man, let's go ahead and react. All right, so now I think the first game of the season is going to tell a lot, right? You got to play against Florida State, the Seminoles. You know how they're going to feel coming into this game, right? They got one of the worst defeats in the Orange Bowl in its history itself. You know, they lost really bad to Georgia. Obviously, they didn't have a lot of their players, but that's going to leave a sour taste in their mouth. Some of their players are going to be going to the league: Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Jordan Travis, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to be very important for Florida State, the defending ACC champion, to come out hot. They want to get back. They want to make the college football playoff this year officially. That's going to be very, very important. I think very, very vital to see what happens with all that. So this is going to be a good measuring stick, game one for Georgia Tech. See kind of how they come out, how they going to match up against probably one of the the ACC powerhouses. Now the second game against Georgia State, in my opinion, I think that's, if they end up losing game one, let's say you lose game one, it is a 12-team playoff. They still have rights. They still have an ability to win the ACC, right? But it's important to get back on track against Georgia State. That's a non-conference opponent, but it's the first time that these two teams face off against each other. And the cool thing is they're only about 2 miles apart from each other in downtown Atlanta, so that is super cool. And two former players, Zach Gibson, the quarterback, and Kenyatta Watson, the cornerback, is now on Georgia State. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of comes out on top. Yeah, one thing I failed to mention is that all 11 of these teams had a winning record. All 11 of these teams had bowl berths. This is the sixth toughest schedule in the country, according to ESPN and 247 Sports. I did not mention that. And also, 4 of the top 5 teams in the ACC last season, Georgia Tech is going to face. So that's also something to note. Now, Syracuse would be kind of a question mark because we don't really know what that's going to be, right? Because they got a new head coach, the former cornerbacks coach, DB coach of Georgia. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of come out. It's going to be hard to kind of know with that one. VMI is kind of a get-right game, I think, for Georgia Tech, in case they do lose to Syracuse because they're kind of a question mark. But I feel like their head coach is going to have them ready to go, ready to play. And then you got Louisville. Now, Louisville's interesting because Louisville's a road game this year. Last year, you guys remember, they opened the season against Louisville. They lost in the thrilling matchup between those two teams. And Louisville started the season 10-1 with very impressive ranked wins, I believe, against Duke. And they had a really hot start, one of their best finishes, I believe, in their program history. And he also was the ACC champion runner-up to Florida State, a team they lost in the championship game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out, one of their best finishes in program history. Now, Duke is going to be interesting as well, right? They lost their defensive coordinator, who's now the defensive coordinator now for Georgia Tech, and Tyler Santucci. Duke had a pretty good start to the season. They put a lot of people on notice, especially beating Clemson the way they did and how they were able to do it. So it's going to be interesting to see at home game. That'll be really intriguing. Now, the one I can't wait to see, I got my popcorn ready for, got to be North Carolina. Now, I say North Carolina because you guys got to remember what Georgia Tech did the previous season. Now, it's a game that North Carolina controlled throughout, right? They had a firm throttle on that game. But you go to the fourth quarter, Georgia Tech outscored them 22-7. Jamal Haynes, Dante Smith, they both scored big, long touchdowns. And then Haynes King comes up clutch with a strike to Ben Cipher to basically put them up with less than 4 minutes to go in the game. They end up hanging on. Georgia Tech storms the field, beats a ranked opponent, and that was their second ranked win of the season, beating them. So it's going to be a lot in that game. Obviously, they're not going to have Drake May, but North Carolina game, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Now, this game, we know the history of Notre Dame, 13 national championships. Marcus Freeman's had 2 winning seasons already, 9 wins the first year, 10 wins the next year. They're independent. They're just a storied program, right? Anytime you play Notre Dame, you're going to be on the national spotlight. So it's going to be interesting to see in a neutral setting at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against them on October 19th. I think that's going to be a marquee matchup. That's going to be a good measuring stick, too, to see what Georgia Tech really is. Obviously, you got Florida State going to be the first one. I think the next one will obviously be North Carolina, and then I think Notre Dame is going to be the next measuring stick. So how would they come out? How would they perform? Notre Dame lost a lot of players. No Audric Estime, no Sam Hartman, no Chris Tyree. They're replacing a lot of players, but a key thing about Notre Dame, they had the top 10 recruiting class in the 2024 class. So they're going to have guys ready to plug and play early on. So watch out for that. Now, Virginia Tech, they have a very underrated quarterback who was second on the team in rushing. He had a really good year, only 17 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, takes care of the football, very smart. So they're going to be interesting as well. Now, the next one, I think you got to get your popcorn ready, is Miami. Now, you got to think, man, Miami lost in mind-boggling, head-scratching fashion against them, right? So now you got to be thinking, Miami going to want they get back, right? They should have just nailed the ball. They didn't. They ran it. They fumbled. And then next thing you know, Haynes King is connecting with Christian Leary on a 44-yard game-winning touchdown pass. They end up beating Miami in the game they should have lost. So you got to think about that as well. Miami going to want to get back. I expect that atmosphere to be electric on November 9th between those two teams. Get your popcorn ready for that one. Now, the next one, NC State. That one will be intriguing as well. They also had another one of their better seasons. This will actually be a special game. This will be on a Thursday night. So it'll be interesting to see how Georgia Tech comes on top. But that is their final home game to close out the season. And, they're going to have to be ready. NC State is not going to be playing around. That's going to be a big test as well. And then last but not least, they played, despite losing to Georgia, they played them very tough. This game is going to be in Athens. We know Georgia is winning the rivalry right now, 71-39. So it's going to be really intriguing to see, can Georgia Tech go out there and beat them? They haven't beat them since 2018. In that game, they won 2016, excuse me. They beat them 28-27. So I think last year they showed, okay, hey, we ready to play. I'm not saying Georgia's susceptible in any way. They're not. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the country next year. But if Georgia Tech can, do what they need to do in their non-conference schedule and in their conference schedule, this game might potentially be for a potential chance to get a shot in the college football playoff. So that game, November 30th, circle it. It's going to be very intriguing to see who comes out on top. Georgia has won the last couple of matchups. I think they're at least like 7-0, 8-0. But they own the overall series 71-39. So it'll be interesting to see who wins this one. Georgia Tech, this is a good measuring stick, one of the top teams in the country. So, yeah, y'all, that's my thoughts on the schedule, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will be covering Tech throughout the year. I can't wait. One of my big moments is covering this program. Can't wait, man. I'll be on campus for some of their big home games, so I can't wait, man. It's going to be a lot of fun covering this program. Obviously, I cover them with recruiting and top recruits in the state and also in the country, so I can't wait, man. Georgia Tech is a program on the rise. It's going to be fun to cover them.